Hi everyone, Megan here from Romance by the Book with the lovely Marielle.
Hello.
And this is week 2 for August's book of the month, Where Dreams Begin by Lisa Kleypas.
Yes, we left off with Holly and Zachary kind of bantery and also him like wanting to see her wrestle with temptation.
Yeah.
So like she also had revealed that her husband was not like of her same stature, like she married
Status.
down the first time. And
Yeah.
so he is obviously having thoughts. We
Yes.
start off this week's so chapter 7 with her kind of reaching out to her old acquaintances, and she's not sure what the reception's going to be now that she's been at Zachary Bronson's house, but
Right.
everybody's real interested in seeing her. Um,
Most
and
everybody.
everybody wants to see her.
Everybody
There's a
wants the
few.
tea.
There's a few people who are like, if you're this bad off, we could help you. You could come stay with us. Um, but most of the people are like, "Can I come visit you? Like, maybe meet Mr. Bronson?"
Yeah.
And she is real weirded out by it, but when she talks
hmm
to Zachary, he's like, "I mean, a lot of those ladies wanna spend time with me," and she's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean?"
And she's like, ew.
So, yeah, he, is kind of teasing her during their lessons, their next lesson, which is in the evening because he was doing stuff in the day.
Mm-hmm.
She has some of this, like, delicious red wine that's also very expensive, and she's thinking like, "Man, I better not get too used to this because I will not be able to afford it later."
Yeah.
But but she gets a little drunk, and so they start kind of, like, flirting, and he kisses her wrist, and it makes her heart beat,
Uh-huh.
and so it asks her to finish the wine and let him have his way with her. And then he says, "We can pretend we don't remember in the morning." And I think I was telling you before that, like, when I read that, I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I mean, she's drunk, so she's not paying attention, but he's definitely saying, like, "This is what we did before, right?"
Yeah.
Kiss in the
And
dark and
she doesn't
pretend
catch
we don't
on to that at all, of course, because she
know.
is not with it. Yeah.
No. But so she's like, "No, I better go." And so he kind of helps her. She's kind of tottery and he helps her get
hmm
on her feet. And when he knows she's stable, she goes off to bed. And he is feeling things that he does not like.
Big, big
Um,
feelings.
yeah, he's sure, like 100% sure that he could seduce this woman, except she would leave like immediately after. And so he's he knows that he prefers, like, her company if it's just talking in the evening
Yeah.
to and so in his head, he's like, "Well, I can go
Other
find
ways.
some women for that,
Yeah.
and then I'll just
I
hang out
can't
with
have
her."
her the way I want all the ways I want her, but I can have her most of the ways I want her, and just this I can worry about somewhere else, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except that when he has been going to the club, and he has been, and it's not enough, and
Doesn't work.
he's realizing that there's more, maybe more to it than
Yeah.
just being like a bodily function, and
Like
he's
getting
not
an itch
happy about it.
scratched. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not pleased with this
No,
revelation.
it's bad news for him.
It's so bad. Poor Zachary, he's having problems.
Oh, Zachary.
Yeah. So after that, next day sort of situation, he's looking at some architectural plans because he's building a house
A country
in
house.
Devon,
Mhm.
and he asks her opinion, and she's like, "Do you want?" Yes.
I don't know. Do you really wanna know my opinion? Yeah.
She's like, "I'm
And
not
so
an
she's very
expert."
diplomatically says, "Do you like it?"
She's like, "I'm not an expert, and do you like it?" And he says, "My taste is terrible." Everybody knows it, and she's just like,
Maybe.
"I mean, that's true." Not wrong.
Yeah.
So she basically tells him, like, "I think that this architect is trying to, like, give you what he thinks that you think that people wanna see, and it's just
Right.
not, like, I don't think it's working."
Yeah.
So she suggests another architect. She has a cousin who's like a distant cousin, but he is an architect. He's making a name for himself. He hasn't done a job that's quite as like big as this, but
Right.
he is kind of up and coming and
Hmm.
busy. She's like, I'm not sure how, if how quickly he could like fit you in. And he's like,
Right.
he would fit me in immediately.
Right. Girl, please. Yeah. He'll be here with his plans in a fortnight.
Yeah.
And he
Uh,
is.
Zachary, yeah, I'm like Zachary. No, like he's not being humble about it, but actually he's not wrong either. So,
No, definitely not.
um, in the meantime, so he does show up, um, and it means that Elizabeth and Holly don't have their lesson, which Elizabeth is like, oh, so sad. But Holly's like,
I'll
if
go
you
ride my
want,
horse.
yeah, like if you want to come with us, and she's like, stuffy old
Old architect?
architect.
No.
Also, it's fine. However, the architect is not old or stuffy. And
Yep.
so when Elizabeth meets him, all of a sudden she is interested in those plans.
Yep.
She has opinions.
And Holly very correctly notices that he is also interested in Elizabeth, but he is also making sure that he's not showing that. Which is smart.
Yeah, yeah, especially when Zachary Bronson was once a prize fighting
Hmm.
knuckle, what is that called? Bare knuckle
Oh,
boxer.
yes.
So, anyway, after this, they find out that there are the Plymouth Ball is coming up, and Holly is like, "This is a very good opportunity
Entry
for us to
point.
go."
Yeah.
Also, it gives us a deadline. I know you didn't want to learn how to dance from a dancing master, Zachary Bronson. However, we're doing it.
However,
So
you need to know how to
Zachary,
dance.
yeah,
That's half the
Elizabeth
battle.
is doing great. She's very like, and so she just has to like tone it down a little bit. Zachary, on the other hand, nobody knew, but boxing apparently makes you rely light on your feet.
Hmm.
So he's doing great. He will only dance with Holly, though. He's not going to dance with this
Some
dancing
dancing
master.
master. Yeah.
And unfortunately, having her in his arms is making him have horny thoughts,
Very
which is
many.
inconvenient. um,
It's a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem. And she's also like kind of thinking about how, because when they clash, like he swears that like around her, he
Right.
tells her stuff that's
He
so,
raises his voice. Yeah. Hmm.
and she thinks to herself like he's so my George, but never.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but
There's a lot of
also
that.
But also she's like, but this man treats me, she says, because I wrote it down that she says he treats her bluntly, but he says it makes her feel vital and alive and interested in things that are outside of her own like bubble.
Right, like, she's
And
basically been coddled by everyone else her entire life, and he doesn't do that to her. He just treats her like a normal person, and she likes it a lot.
yeah, so even though it's like he gets under her skin in a way that's uncomfortable, she also really likes the person she can be with him.
Yeah.
Um, and so anyway, but they are kind of like butting heads, and
Mhm,
she ends up getting a migraine, which she hasn't since she got to their house.
mhm.
But she feels like all the signs that it's starting, and she's asked Maud like, "Oh, do we have any of that medicine? Because I think I'm going down for the count." And so um, Zachary he had told them that he was not going to be having dinner because he was going to be going out. And
Of course, knew what that meant. Yeah.
that's probably why she had a migraine, is because she was like,
She's
she,
jealous AF.
yeah, she's like mad that he's going out, and he says
Yeah.
something to her like, "Oh, you sound like you might be a little, that testiness sounds like maybe you're a little jealous," and she's just
Uh-huh.
like, "How dare you?"
As
But
if.
also,
Yeah, she totally is.
um,
Yeah.
but so he's coming down like boop boop down the stairs to get ready, and he runs into Rose, and she's looking pitiful. She's so sad. Um, and he's kind of like, what's going on? And he tells her like, oh, I'm waiting for Maud. She's giving my mom her medicine. And so Zachary's like, what?
What's wrong with
Like
her?
she was
I was with her
fine
an
a
hour
minute
ago.
ago.
Yeah.
So
So, the Rose kind of explains that she gets these, bad headaches, and so he, of course, like, runs right upstairs to
yeah,
check on her.
It's interesting
And
because they're like, you shouldn't. Maud is like, no,
you
no.
can't
And he's
go in
like, I'm
there.
going.
Yeah,
And
like she's half dressed, she's in the bed. He's like, don't care. So he goes in and she's already taking the medicine. So she's starting to get out of it already. She's not quite asleep yet. And they're talking about stuff and he starts like massaging the back of her neck. And he feels how like tight it is and stuff and that seems to actually be helping. And so he stays there basically till she falls asleep.
yeah. In the meantime, she does tell him a few things, like half like mumbly, half things. And mentions her George's best friend,
Mhm. It was
Ravenhill,
like
and then
about the day that George died and like stuff like that. And yeah, his best friend came and he made them both promise something. And he's like, "What did you promise?" And she's like, "It doesn't matter." And you're going like, I think it is gonna matter, but let's find out.
yeah. So, but anyway, he goes to his club after this, and he is probably because she just told him about this promise she made to George. He is very smugly thinking about how he got into this club, and he bet George and the Taylors never even
Never
tried
even
to get
tried.
in because it's so exclusive.
Yeah.
And so while he's sitting there, this young, newly minted Lord Warrington tells Zachary that
Upstart.
he's surprised to see him there
Yeah.
since he's got this new situation with Lady Holly at his home. And he's like, excuse me?
What
And
does that mean?
he's like,
Yeah.
everybody knows that you have this new mistress or whatever. And so he's like, you take that back. Like you need to take that back. And the kid's like, no. So he's like, you take it back or I will like
I'm gonna take her
beat
head
the
off.
cat out of you.
Yeah.
And he's just like, it becomes clear really quickly to Zachary that this is what this kid wanted anyway.
Yes. He
That
wanted to
he's
fight.
like, because he says, oh, if I win, then you never come back to this club. He's
Hmm.
not actually a member. He's like has an
Permanent
open
guest.
invitation. Yeah, it's a permanent guest that he can come and go,
Because
but
he can't physically qualify because he's not
appear.
a peer, but he has more money than a lot of them combined. So
See the permanent guests, which I guess means he probably can't like bring people with him, but he can go whenever he wants. I'm
yeah,
assuming this, it doesn't say. But anyway, he so he's like, you'll never come back here if I win. And and Zachary's like, well, if I win, you will
retract what you
apologize,
said.
you
Yeah,
retract your statement, apologize. And then he notices like a shiny button and is
like a
like,
diamond button on his jacket.
then he's like, it's like a 2 carat diamond. And he's like, and you will give me that button. And the guy's like, weird, but okay.
And you're going like, oh my God, he's going to give a diamond button to Rose for her button string.
Her mother will hate it, but that's fine.
Hmm.
So in the meantime, the guy's like, excellent, we'll make plans for tomorrow. And Zachary's like, no, we're not, because he
Nope,
knows
right
that this
now.
kid's trying to make like a spectacle of it and do a
Yes.
whole thing. And
And
he's not gonna,
meanwhile, all the rumors are going to continue to proliferate about Holly, and he's not going to have that.
yeah. So he's just like, no, we're taking care of this right now. They got a cellar up there. We'll do it. And he's just like, we need time to prepare. And from the corner, I just picture in my head from a corner like a
Yeah, he said he
newspaper
was reading a
coming down.
newspaper, and he like, yeah,
He's like, I will be your second.
yep,
And it's Ravenhill who is the person who is George's best friend.
that she had just
Uh
been talking about.
yeah,
Like
so
his ears were burning, and then he appeared.
Zachary Bronson does not know this man, but he was
No,
like, I recognize that name and realizes that this is where it came from.
yeah,
So they do fight. Zachary is like kind of taunting the kid, but
he's toying
Ravenhill
with the
tells
kid.
him, don't underestimate him. He actually
Yeah,
is like a trained. I fought him at
yeah,
Oxford. He's quicker than you think. He's
right.
more so. I mean, good
And
job,
of course,
Ravenhill, for being a good
Zachary's not
kid.
worried, and he does like toy with him until Ravenhill's like, "Don't embarrass the kid forever. Like, just knock him out and be done with it." Basically,
He's like, I know, I said I'd be your second, but I don't want to be here
you're
all
right. Like, let's be done with this.
night.
So he does win the fight, and the kid does apologize, and And they sort of make amends. Like he seems to respect Zachary more after this and
Mhm.
like welcomes him into the club like in a different way, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess fair's fair, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had, like, agreed on rules and done all
Yeah.
this stuff, but anyway, Zachary still won. I had no doubt. Neither did he.
No.
Um, but then when Holly wakes up from her
Like 24
migraine,
hours in the bed. Yeah.
she's just like, "Oh no, how's Rose? What's going on?" And it's like, "Oh, Rose is fine. Like everyone in the family has taken up her cause, is playing with her. She's
Doting
doing
on
great."
her. Yeah.
Um, and when she,
She goes down to meet everybody for
goes,
dinner and see Rose, and Zachary's face is black and
all dead.
blue. And she's like, what happened?
But yeah, he's like, I ran into something.
Yeah.
and, and she, Rose is obviously like,
Yeah, somebody's
um,
left hook.
yeah. So she's like, you were fighting. Were you fighting over money, like some kind of business deals, women? And then she's thinking of like all the reasons why he might, and she's like, me? Did somebody say something about me? And
And he
he,
was like, no. And she's like, that was a lie.
yeah. So
So she knows.
he's like, you really should have ignored. You really should have ignored that. Like it's
Mhm.
not going to
Doesn't
make things
matter.
better.
And now
And
you've
he's
made
just
it into a
like,
thing. Yeah.
and he is
He's
like,
not built that way. He can't ignore it. Yeah.
and I mean, I don't know. I don't condone violence, but if somebody
It
said
was
stuff
satisfying.
about me, yeah, I don't think I'd be mad about it.
Nope.
But so after, all this stuff is resolved, like she notices, um, oh, actually, before that, Zachary's mom kind of pulls him aside and is like,
Mm,
I've noticed something. And I would like to tell you that you need to not,
that she is not
if,
for you.
yeah. He's like, you may be experiencing funny feelings, but I think you should save those for some other woman.
You should
Like,
refrain from acting on them. Yeah.
yeah, he is like, what, like, what? Why do you not
Like,
like
do not
her?
like her. Yeah.
And she's like, I love her. She's amazing. Also not for you. And he's really kind of like taken aback and kind of
Yeah.
offended. And she's like, I've seen plenty of like high born
Highborn ladies.
women who
Yeah.
seem like they would be fine. Set your cap for one of those.
Not her.
She tells him, we, like the three of us, you and me and Elizabeth, have a like streak of hardness in us, and Lady Holly does not.
Right. And
Like
it's good.
she,
Like, that's why we survived. But like, she is not the same as us. She is
yeah,
soft and kind and like, she cannot
like
handle
through
you.
and through, she's
Yeah.
soft. And so she's just kind of like, she needs somebody who's soft like
Also
she's
soft.
soft.
Yeah.
And
And that's
he
never going
is,
to be you, no matter how many etiquette lessons you have. Yeah.
yeah. But he's just kind of like, what do you, he's like, what do you mean? I don't, like, he does not get it. But she's just like, I, he's like, there's gotta be, she said something like, there are men like you in this world who like always reach for more than what you should have. And she's like, just, can't you learn how to be happy with what you
With what
have?
you got. Yeah.
And he's just like, guess
I don't know.
not. And so she's like, he's kind of like, I guess not. And she
Yeah.
says to him, um, like, she kind of is like, won't you listen to me? Like, just please.
Like, I love you. I'm trying to take care of you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So she's like, you'll take my advice. But he says something about her being wise, and he's like, but you'll
Hmm.
take my advice, right? And he says, I'd be a fool not to. And then she's like, that means yes? Question mark.
And
And
he's
he's just
like,
like,
and he just leaves. Bye.
so yeah. So after that, he starts spending more time at home, and it's like for the it's in Lady Holly's POV, so she's kind of like, oh, the servants are doing better,
Mm.
and also Zachary Bronson is staying at home
Mhm.
He's not swearing around me. He's
The
been like there's
innuendo and stuff is gone, like, it's a whole different vibe between them now, and she doesn't really know what to make of it.
yeah, but she also starts noticing because like his like surliness and his swearing and all that stuff kind of put a wall between them.
Mhm,
She starts to notice that he is actually a very good person, that
mhm.
he's always looking out for like the best interests of his workers, that he like it's not that he's charitable, like that he's out there like giving money
Right,
to the poor in like
right.
in like to charities, but when he takes over a company that he like makes sure that there are provisions there. He won't hire like child laborers.
Mhm.
He gives he makes sure that people have like a pension fund and stuff that
Yeah,
is it seems very progressive, I guess, but she starts
right, more
noticing
than what all the other people are doing in their
yeah,
factory, for sure.
more than
Yeah,
people do now if they can get away with it, right?
yeah,
So she starts thinking like actually he's really kind of
great.
yeah.
Kinda great, yeah.
And then in the meantime, the Plymouth Ball is coming up. So he is like, for his mom and his sister, like you guys should go get some dresses. Also, how about you too,
You get some
Lady
dresses.
Holly? Get yourself some dresses. And she is like, full well
That is not
that
appropriate.
you should
You
not be
cannot buy
buying
me clothes.
clothing
Yeah,
for a lady. And he is like, okay, I mean, I'll take it out of your pay if you want. And she's
yeah,
just like, no, you will not. You will not buy clothes for me.
yeah, period. Yep,
And yet
and yet
we
he
do know
does.
he has a contrarian nature. He buys clothes for her.
Well, and she does make a point of saying that, like, she brought them to her seamstress who she knew and trusted, and so, of course, she already has her measurements, so when he called on them and was like, "Oh, you should make these for her," they already knew, you know, what to do, so
Hmm.
here they showed up, and I think the thing that makes her the maddest of all is that they're beautiful, and she really wants to wear them, and now she can.
And none of them are like she has been keeping herself in like the colors of like half mourning or mostly mourning or whatever the
Gray, brown,
um
navy blue, yeah.
yeah, and he has bought her clothes that are, like, not morning clothes, like,
Yellow,
decidedly
green, yeah, and
red, and then there's this
red.
red ball gown that she is just like, "I love
That's the
it.
most
I
beautiful thing
could
I've ever
never
seen, and
wear
now I can
it."
never wear it.
And
What a
she can't
waste.
wear it for reasons, right? Like, because he bought it,
Yes,
because it's bright red and, like, it's not
and
what
racy,
she's
yeah, which is
and
not
yeah,
like
it's
her.
racy.
Yeah,
And so I feel like the interesting thing about this book is like how much he makes her reevaluate who she is as a person.
yes.
But yeah, this is the thing. So when they're getting ready, Elizabeth like gets down with her white dress, looks
She looks
beautiful.
beautiful.
The mama comes down and he's very complimentary, and then Holly comes down in a gray dress, like dove gray
It's
dress.
like a perfectly acceptable ball gown, but it is gray, and he gets mad. And he says, "You're gonna wear that?" And I was like, "Oh, no, those are fighting words."
I feel like you heard the tone in your in
Oh,
reading.
yeah. You're like, "Those are fighting words. You do not say that to a lady who's just spent hours getting ready. That is a big problem."
And she's so mad.
Yes, oh,
Um,
she gets really mad. They have it out. He, like, accuses her of using her widow's weeds as, like, an attention-seeking thing and, like, to just remind everybody of everything that she's lost, and, like, she says, he'll never understand loving somebody as much as she loved George, and, like, they're just really mean to each other, and she runs upstairs.
and the thing that's interesting is that
Ugh,
like, he's wrong, but he's right. Like, she
and
doesn't
that's
want
why she's even more mad.
attention, but she definitely wants to like remind others and herself
Yeah,
that she loved her husband and that she had lost
and it
him.
keeps a
And
level of a wall between them all
yeah.
the time, and that's what she needs, in order to not give in to what they both want.
And then so like his mom is kind of like, "What in the world did you do?" And his sister's like, "I mean, only you could like in 30
Could ruin
seconds
everything before it even
ruin."
starts.
Yeah, and so It's like the servants were also being like, "Woo, let me
Yeah.
go do like dust this corner." And so he's just like, "Oh gosh." I
He knows he has to go apologize.
His mom is like, "I'll go, but you need to tell me what happened." And he's like, "Nope, I will go."
Yeah.
In the meantime, she has gone up there and she's talked to Maud, her lady's maid, and was just kind of like
We're wearing this red
she
dress.
yeah, so she puts the red dress on and she's just like, "This does
Well,
not
she does it
even."
in a fit of temper, and at first you're like, "Is she gonna be like, oh, no, I can't possibly wear this?" But instead she's like, "Oh my god, I look amazing." And
Well,
also
and
she
Maud
says
says,
like
"I hardly recognize you." And so she's like, "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?"
yeah.
And
Well,
she
and
and
she's
she asks, "What would my husband have thought of this?"
right.
And Maud is like, "I mean, I think he would have loved to see you in that dress."
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and she
any
says, she's like,
man.
"I saw some ladies at the last ball who were wearing way less than this. Like, this is actually okay." And she's like, "It's not the dress, it's the color." Like, it is like red. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But she's determined because she's pissed off at him and she's gonna make him eat it.
So when he goes to apologize, she opens the door and
He is
like,
shook. He expects to find her,
cannot
like,
speak.
in her nightgown, like she's gonna go to bed now because she's mad, and instead, she's, like, dressed to kill, and she
Well,
does kill
yeah,
him.
so she's like, "Does this meet with your approval,
Mhm.
Mr. Bronson?" And he's just like,
Yep.
so yeah.
And
He
he
knows,
does eventually basically eke out an apology for the most part, and she's like, "You should regret what you said, it was terrible," and, like, "Fine."
but
And
she
then she's
also
like,
is like, "I regret some things too, so
"Yes,
I shouldn't have said that you, like, wouldn't ever love
couldn't love
anyone or
anybody that
wouldn't know
much." Yeah.
how. Like, I only said that because I was upset. I have no doubt that you will lose your heart to someone someday. I just don't know. I just can't imagine who it might be." And in his head, he's like,
"It's you." And you're reading it going, "It's you, dummy."
well, and he in his inner monologue is kind of like, how could she not see it? Like, I
She
clearly.
doesn't want to. She doesn't
But
want to.
then
Why?
she looks at him and is like looking at him intently from the, and
Mhm.
she's like, "Come inside, sit down." And he's like,
Your hair's a mess.
"Okay."
Yeah,
So she's gonna fix his hair for him.
which she does, and it's
And
a very intimate, sweet moment between them, and, in fact, Maude, like, gasps when she comes in the room and, like, sees them together because he's in her room, which, first of all, is a faux pas to begin with, and then she's, like, using her bare hands and, like, fixing up his hair and stuff, and
mhm.
so,
Well,
yeah.
he never puts like product in his
Pomade.
hair.
Yeah,
And so he's like, "I hate it." And she's like, "I know, but you, for
you
this
need it.
kind of occasion, you
Yeah.
will need it." And so she starts like massaging that into his hair and whatever. And so they're very, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very
Maud is
intimate moment,
like,
and it's very sweet. So off they go to the ball.
unfortunately, they get there. I mean, it goes well.
Yeah.
And like
Elizabeth is having a great
every
time, and that was honestly the whole point of all of this supposedly, so, like, that part is great.
yeah, Elizabeth is doing great. People are being very nice to her.
Everybody wants to
Uh
dance with her, including
Holly
the
even hears
architect, who
Holly
she's
even
very
hears some people talking about like, "Well, would you accept that kind of a man as like for your daughter?"
right,
And someone says like someone so common, and the other person is like, "Well, his fortune's not
is
common."
not common, yeah.
So so she like, she's seeing like another side of things too. And
Yeah.
yes, the architect comes and he's gonna dance with Elizabeth.
Yes,
And
everything's going great.
but at one point the hostess comes and takes
The mom
Paula, which is Zachary Bronson's mom, away to like chat with her. And then all these like men come
start
to
coming out
talk
of the
to
woodwork all over the place and
her.
surrounding.
It doesn't like say in the book, but I'm assuming there's two things. One is that she's wearing like a hot red dress,
Yes.
and the other is that she moved in with Zachary Bronson. So I think that
And
people
now
like
everybody
people's
assumes a thing
idea.
about her.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
before their idea of her was like someone who would never, forever, and
Yeah.
now it's like, well, maybe.
Maybe she would. Yeah.
So,
And she's getting very uncomfortable. She does not like it. And of course, Zachary shows up right in time to drag her away.
And he is irate. I mean, he's just like, people are slobbering all over you. Like, what is
Right. They
this?
say, I'm not a gentleman. Like, I'm not like cornering you in the room and slobbering all over your dress. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's kind of like, ooh, this is so, I don't that like she's kind of like, you're overstating. Like that's not.
Right. It wasn't
But
like that. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, it was.
but then Ravenhill shows up
Oh, Ravenhill. Yes.
and they are like, well,
Well, she had
but
already kind of pawned him off. Like, go dance with these. Here's 3 names. You needed to dance with these women. Do everything I showed you. It'll be great. And he like reluctantly goes off. And she leaves the room and runs into Ravenhill. And they haven't seen each other since her husband died. And so they have a lot to catch up on.
but they go to the
And
gardens for like a quiet corner so they can sit and chat. And as they have the discussion, they're like circling around a thing. Like he's kind of like,
about this promise
she's
that they both
asking
made to
how
George
he's
on his deathbed.
been. Yeah, she's asking how he's been because he went to the continent and whatever. And he is like, I abandoned you. I'm so sorry. Like, I made a promise and I have not kept it. And
Yeah.
she's kind of like, oh, well, you're still wanted. I mean, like, I didn't
Want to
even.
keep it? Yeah.
And so they have this discussion as they're talking. You're kind of like,
They're talking around a thing.
sounds an
Yeah.
awful lot like you promised, like you were gonna, because he's like, I was supposed to make sure you were okay and take care.
Right.
And I was like, so
Yeah.
by the end, you're like, this promise is
Is a
sounds,
problem.
it sounds like that's,
Sounds like a problem.
she said it
Yeah.
didn't matter, but it feels very much like it does.
Yeah.
So anyway, he is gonna go back and then she's gonna hang out at the garden a little bit
Yeah,
more
he
to
basically they
see.
agree to talk about it more the next day, and he's gonna come call on her, and then he leaves.
And so he's coming to Zachary's house to
Mm-hmm.
continue the discussion because he said this isn't the right place to talk about this, but
Right.
they need to have a discussion. And
Mm-hmm.
she told him that honestly, when he left for the continent, that she kind of thought that was it, but he
Right.
is like actually like.
And after he leaves, she's sort of talking to her husband. Like, she's like, I know that I promised you this and you asked me to, and you thought it was the right thing, but like, I need a sign from you. Like, do you still think this is the right thing?
And
And
up
as
pops
she's saying
Zachary
this,
Branson,
Zachary shows
and
up.
he's real mad. He's like, "What are you doing out here?"
So mad.
Yeah,
And he's well, first he's accusatory. Like he's using it like you're here for Elizabeth and you're out here making moon eyes at Ravenhill. And she's like, oh please, like that is not what was happening. And
but
then he's like, fine,
also, but also,
what is happening then?
yeah, and also like it says in the book, he's kind of like he had never felt that kind of like jealousy before. Like he is angry when
Rageful.
he
Yeah.
sees them talking, when
Hmm.
he sees them like walk out of the ballroom together.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's just like, well, what was that about? And so she says, and she really like pussyfoots around this too, which makes you
Yes.
think that later when he's like, this is ridiculous, like
Right.
probably
Clearly
believes
she
it
does know that. Yeah.
because she takes like 2 pages to be able to tell him that when George was dying, he expressed his fear over like what would become of her, and
Hmm.
that she was going to be like alone. There's no one to protect her. She would make terrible decisions, that everything was going to be horrible because she didn't
Hmm.
have a man. And so she made her and his best friend
Hmm.
Ravenhill promise that they would marry each other after he had died.
After he died. Yeah.
And of course, Zachary Bronson is like, what? This is the dumbest thing I've
What?
ever heard in all my
Yeah.
life.
He's like, no, ma'am, that is ridiculous. I'm glad you called it off. And she's like, actually, no.
Yeah.
And then he's even more
So
mad.
more, yes. He's like, this is idiotic. Don't tell me that you have some notion of actually like
You're
doing
actually going
it.
to do this. Yeah.
And she's just kind of like, look, let's just go back to the ball. We'll talk about this in a more appropriate time. And he's like, no, 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 no.
Nope. Now.
Like we're having this discussion. So and he is really upset. Like
Yeah.
she's just like he, he says like obviously he didn't want this. He's been gone for 3 years. and there hasn't been any wedding. So
Yeah.
I'd say that's a sign that he's not willing. And she says, I thought so too. But when I spoke to him tonight, he said that it took him a long time to sort things out and that he still wants to honor those wishes. And he's like, of course he does, after he looked at you in that red dress, which makes me laugh because she would have never worn that red
Oh,
dress if it
never.
wasn't for him.
No, he did it. Yeah.
So, yeah,
And
anger.
it's just, they're just sniping back and forth. And she's really keeps trying to be like, look, let's just table this. And he's like, no, no, no. Like, we're doing this right now. And he
He
is,
he's
he's
she
so
says
mad.
like, I'm not the kind of woman who would something, and he's like, oh, you're the kind of woman who would kiss a stranger in the dark twice. And she's like, look, I was out of sorts that day, I didn't
Well,
know what was
first of all,
going
she's
on.
like, because that's the first time that he's admitted that he knew that it was her. And she is horrified. And then, of course, she's immediately making excuses for why she did it.
Yes. So he is like, so if I kissed you now, you wouldn't have that same response?
And she's like, no, of course
And
not.
she's like, of course not. And I'm like,
And
ma'am,
he's like,
you're like
okay, we're about to
asking.
find out.
Yeah. So she definitely is like, I'm gonna stay very still. It's
Yep.
gonna be, and he,
Yep.
but no, that's not what happened.
Nope.
They
Nope.
do
Nope.
have a kiss.
They really are like uh making out, and she cannot get close enough to him. He like eventually he like picks her up, and then he like sits down, and she's like in his
He
lap, and
can't either. He's like
no.
murmuring into her lips and kissing under her. And I
Yep.
mean, just it's been
And at
building up
one
for so
point
long that
she hears him say in her ear, "You're my woman, and no man or God or ghost will ever take you from me." And we're like swooning forever over that. And meanwhile, she gets freaked the F out and is like, "Oh no, this is bad, bad, bad. I gotta stop right now."
mhm, it's the worst because I was like, how I anyway, if someone whispered that in my ear, like I'd be a goner for
It's
sure.
on.
I mean, unless they were really a creep, but they already
Yeah, but
were
no, but
like,
like in that scenario with how much she already likes him, yeah.
yeah. I mean, they've been Lisa Kleypas has been like winding this spring for the entire like 2/3 of this book. And now it's, I mean, I was like, it is on. And
It is
she
on.
was like, it's not,
It's not on. I gotta
gotta
go.
get off,
Yeah.
gotta get off this ride.
Uh-huh.
So she gets off his lap. She's like,
Yep.
okay, gotta go. And
We're gonna
she,
pretend this never happened tomorrow. Okay, bye.
yeah, not if he's not a, she tries to act like he just like wants to
Right.
bang it out in there. And he is like, you know full well that's not what I want.
No.
So they still like have more of a more arguing because
Yeah.
it's just like, why won't you
Why can't you understand
see
me?
that this is,
Yeah.
like this is not like going with this guy does not make any sense. I make
Yeah.
much more sense. And he's kind of like, you could, if I mean, if you just want to marry somebody, like if that's the problem, you got options. And
Me.
she's just like, what?
And she's like, we would never suit, blah, blah, blah. Like she always has an excuse, even though it's very clear that they belong together.
So they do go back to the ballroom, and
Yeah.
Zachary is trying to act normal. He can't like tear his eyes away from her, and he's
Yep.
like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna look like a creeper because I need to
I
not look
can't
at
keep
him."
staring at her. Right.
Um, and then he's kind of like, I what could I do to lure, like there's got to be, he even like has this thought of like, if I made, I would even make a statue to
A monument to
George
George Taylor.
Taylor if it would make her. But anyway, in the meantime, he sees Ravenhill,
Ravenhill.
and they
Hmm.
have a
They have
bit of
words.
a conversation, and he starts off the conversation, Zachary Bronson, the most um like subtle man.
Yep.
Tell me, what kind of man would ask his best friend to marry his wife after he died? What kind of a man would inspire these sensible people to do the most
To do the most ridiculous
stupid
thing I've ever
thing?
heard.
He's just like, I mean, a better man than the rest of us. But they
Yeah.
have this conversation where Zachary is like, it seems to me like Lady Holland's an angel of a husband is trying to control her from the grave. And Ravenhill is like, he's trying to take care of
Protect
her.
her from men like you.
And he's just like, you that like he's just like, no, it's not. She should be able to choose.
Yeah.
But Ravenhill is like, because Zachary is like, she's gonna sacrifice the rest of her life
And
to
he's like, yeah,
do
because
this
she said she would.
promise.
Like, if you knew her better, you wouldn't be surprised by it. Yeah.
And he just is like, why? I don't like, he does not,
He doesn't get it.
he doesn't get it.
He doesn't get it. So back at home, she needs a drink. She sneaks down to the library after everybody goes to bed, and of course he's in there. They're talking. That's when they have the conversation about, why don't you just marry me? And she's like, no, I couldn't possibly, et cetera, et cetera. And they, he's like, you're saying all these things about how we don't sue, but like, I think you're wrong. And like, let me show you, basically. And he like kisses her again, and they're like really getting into it. And
She just
and
her, she's like, her heart is like, oh, and she's just like, I cannot.
well, yeah, she thinks
Um,
about her husband and like what he would think of everything that she's done, and she's like, I can't do this. And so um it's so sad because it's like, she when she lets go for a minute and actually like does what she wants, like it can't ever last that long. Like she's always like ready to just like pull the plug.
yeah.
And
And he wants to know, like, are you going to marry that guy? Like, are you going to marry that guy because of a promise you made to a person
your
who's
dead
dead?
husband. Yeah.
And she's just like, I don't know, and you're making it impossible for me to think, and I can't answer that question right now.
Yeah.
And he just is like, why? Like, he does not understand why
No.
she can't just say no.
Yeah.
So she's like, is there something that you are not telling me? Like, is there something
Right. Are
that
you afraid of
that
me?
it's making you scared? Yeah. And so, and he's just kind of like,
She's like,
she
no, of
says
course I'm not afraid of
no,
you.
but he knows that she's scared. And so he is just like,
He doesn't understand what else it could be.
no.
It's herself she's scared of.
But he thinks that it's him or his past or something. And she says
Yeah.
no, but he doesn't. He's like, I know you're scared of something.
Yep.
And so, anyway, she
It's a
says we
mess.
need to
And
put this
again,
time
she's like,
behind
we have
us.
to forget about it.
We
Don't,
need to,
yeah. And every time, the way she gets him to let go is she's like, if you keep this up, I'll have to leave, basically. And he doesn't want her to leave. And so she's like, we have to just pretend this didn't happen and go on like before. Like, we can't do this.
and he says how he'll try, but
Mm.
I mean, historically, that has been not gone well. So that's
Yeah.
the end of chapter 12, and it's very, it's a lot's going on. We
Yeah.
are bound very tight. I'm very tense. I'm very tense.
Yes.
And
And we will be back next week to find out everything that happened.
join us then.
Bye.